Sorry. Good evening. Today, the cool kids make you an offer you can't refuse. Today, we're reviewing the latest mafia film from team of Barry Levinson, Nicholas Pileggi, and Robert De Niro, The Alto Knights, based on the true life story of the friendship turned rivalry between New York mobsters Frank Costello and Vito Genovese. This is one of those rare films where I get all of the criticisms about it. I agree with most of them, and yet, nevertheless, I still like it anyway. I get why critics think De Niro playing two characters seems like a gimmick. I don't agree at all that he did a bad job, and I was still impressed with how well he had differentiated between the two. Deborah Messing as Bobby Costello and Catherine Narducci as Anna Genovese added a lot to the film as well, and they had great chemistry with De Niro. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but wonder what it would have been like to see Joe Pesci across from him as Vito Genovese, or Al Pacino, or perhaps Al Pacino paired with him as Frank Costello. Yet those are basically roles they've played before, but I think that would have been done more to emphasize the point I was trying to make, namely to reflect on the gangster film as it relates to the real-life history of the mafia. Speaking of which, I also get why this feels like familiar territory. It incorporates elements of such staples of the genre as Once Upon a Time in America, Casino, Carlito's Way, The Godfather, etc. Like the first two, Once Upon a Time in America and Casino, the story revolves around old friends turned enemies. Like the second one, Casino, it recounts a history of the mafia. Like the first and the third, Once Upon a Time in America and Carlito's Way, it involves a character trying to get out of the mob life and live a normal life. Also reminiscent of Michael Corleone in the Godfather films, of course. I'm not so sure that wasn't on purpose, however, which may account for why I was okay with it for the most part. But it also doesn't make for anything new, and quite frankly, The Irishman did what this film tries to do better, namely older gangsters reflecting on their past, so I understand why a lot of people didn't vibe with it. I get why the structure bothers people, as the film breaks the cardinal rule of show don't tell, with an older Frank Costello narrating the background rather than just showing it. It may have served the film better to go ahead and take a page from Sergio Leone's Once Upon a Time in America or Scorsese's The Irishman and divide the film into three acts. One showing their rise as youngsters, one focusing on the current conflict between them, and the third showing their eventual reconciliation as old men. Still, even this didn't ruin the film for me. I actually like it's shot more like a documentary style film, like a dramatic documentary where you have some dramatic scenes interspersed with some commentary and pictures, reflections on the past, so to speak. And it feels more like a documentary style, and I actually think that works well for the film. I actually do like Robert De Niro's narration. Maybe it's because I've always liked listening to old people tell stories. Maybe I just love Robert De Niro that much. Either way, it still worked for me. Maybe it's because I'm just a big fan of documentaries. So it's definitely not a great film. It's not terribly memorable, and the rough editing and the basic title cards leave a lot to be desired. Still, it managed to keep me interested enough to hold my attention. Maybe it's because it was based on a true story and it did make me want to research it more. I am a history teacher, after all. It was fairly accurate to the real story. The Appalachian meeting, for example, there really was a hit on Frank Costello that Vito Genovese put on Frank Costello. He was shot in the head, and it did take a weird deflection, just kind of graze him and take a weird deflection. And he did decide after that it was time for him to step away and retire. So, and there really was an Appalachian meeting. Now, we don't know who tipped off the police that the meeting was taking place, but the film theorizes that it was Frank. And in real life, Frank did make a stop, and he did seem unconcerned when the cops were there. So the film is not entirely out of pocket to suggest that it may have been Frank who actually was the one behind it. It is, it does kind of fit in with his kind of MO. The only thing is, with as far as inaccuracies, they changed the name of his wife for some reason. It wasn't Bobby Costello; it was a woman named Loretta Geigerman. But I mean, as far as their relationship was very similar. He says in the film that he spent his honeymoon in prison, and he did marry her around the time that he got convicted for carrying a gun and went to prison for it. So, but at the end of the day, it's not a great film. It's not terribly memorable, but it managed to keep me interested enough to hold my attention. Maybe it's just because I'm a big history buff, whatever. It may not be a Casino or a Goodfellas, but it's an overall solid effort, in my opinion. It honestly seems to be that it's being judged more for the promise it held, given the massive talent behind it, which is fair, but at the same time, for me, it was good enough to earn a pass. So my rating at the end of the day is a very solid 7.5 out of 10. I was surprised with how much, given the negative reviews, that I was actually engrossed in the film. So, but that's my review, and I will turn it over. I should have done this right here, but I will turn it over to the Geek Informant.
So I'm gonna wing it because I don't really have a ton to say about this movie. Not like it was bad. I actually, similar with Mark, I enjoyed it. Maybe not as much as he did, but I still really liked it. I thought De Niro gave a really great performance. I know he's like it's low hanging fruit and an easy joke to make. Oh, he's the mob guy. Him, Pacino, and Pesci are the mob guys. They're always in a mob movie. Blah blah blah. Even though the last movie was him in a movie about like an autistic kid, but like whatever. So it's an easy joke to make because it's like, oh, he's always in Scorsese movies and he always plays mobsters. It's pretty much a one note and surface level criticism, I feel, because one, he does a great job in them, and two, it's like it's Robert De Niro. The man has shown like his entire filmography is like pretty star-studded with various different kinds of projects. So I don't know. I just feel like that's a little bit dumb, especially when it's like he does a fucking great job here. And even though he and even though he there might not be a sorry, got a lot of stuff in my throat. Even though there's like maybe not a big reason to have him in the dual role, he still did do a great job, and he was the best part of the movie. I thought he played both roles very well. And yes, even though there's a lot of Pesci influence with the Vito role, that like more of an unhinged, unpredictable kind of guy that Pesci usually plays. Hold on. I still thought it was great. I still thought because it was kind of, I don't want to say different because we've seen unhinged De Niro before. I mean, Taxi Driver Says Hello. So we've seen him in unhinged shit before. Here it was like kind of a subdued unhinged. Like clearly this guy was like it was like one bad day. Like this dude was one bad day from just going fucking ape shit on everybody. And I really liked that, but it was like it showed like a layer there and something I really liked about that performance. And then you have the more De Niro-esque performance with Frank Costello, who was more in line with what he does. And that's like, it's a given that he gives that type of great performance because that's what he usually does, and he does a great job. And I think that was very I thought that was the best part of the movie. Deborah Messing was great. I liked the comic relief character of like as Cosmo Jarvis's character, Vincent, who tried to kill Vito but failed, and Frank gives him like shit throughout the entire movie. I will say, like, the comedy with that character could have been seen as really bad and forced, but the way they did it was really funny. Like right after he tries to kill him and he goes back to Vito and he's like, I was trying to be quiet. He's like, you have a fucking gun. It's not going to be quiet, you fucking idiot. And I just love that and the Mormon scene later on in the third act. They had me howling. That was the Palmyra. That's where the Mormons are. Are you fucking stupid? Why would they find a golden Bible and then go to fucking Utah and dig for money? It makes no sense. I don't know why. That just like those two scenes made me laugh. And I think Jarvis, who's going to appear in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey, I thought he did a good job here, like as that sort of bumbling thing that could have been seen more in like another film as poor. I thought it worked well here, considering the dark subject matter. Deborah Messing was great, and I don't really know any of the other actors. They all did a really good job, but they're not really notable enough to me. But they all did a really good job. Like I don't mean to say that they're like bad or forgettable or anything, but I thought they all did a good job. I thought the story was relatively engaging, albeit a bit slow at points. It reached a bit of like maybe that has something to do with the documentary feel. Like Mark, I'm not a big documentary guy. I like some of them, but most of them are just like not my thing. So maybe that didn't help with like the separation for me personally. Like, I'm not a big documentary guy, so I think there was a separation there a little bit. The editing was horrific. That was easily the worst part of the movie, especially in like the first act where it felt very ADHD, where it was like, I feel like I was watching this. I'm like, bro, if somebody has epilepsy in this theater, they're having a seizure. So I was like, God damn. And then, and I know Rob is going to mention this too with the fade outs. The fade outs just felt very a bit too much. It's not like a bad thing, but the fact that I noticed it enough to comment on it is like, yeah, maybe you should have toned it. It was like it's like the Dutch angles and the curtain wipes in Battlefield Earth. It's like, all right, why are we falling? Why are we falling anyway? So it was it kind of reminded me, not nearly as bad of a movie as Battlefield. No, not even close. Battlefield Earth is a terrible movie. I'm just saying that was the first thing I thought of in regards to noticeable editing techniques. But yeah, I thought it was paced okay. I thought the third act was really good. That was like very engaging. It would like kept you on your toes, very edge of your seat. I liked the build up of the first act. The second act is kind of where it lost me a little bit at points, but it was still very good. But yeah, I thought this was an engaging mob story, even though I probably won't remember it in T-1 day. Yup, already forgot. But I think it was still an overall engaging movie. I'd watch it again because this is probably, I feel like my dad would probably like this movie, as many people describe it as your dad's favorite movie. But I still thought it was engaging enough. I didn't regret seeing it. I didn't regret paying for it. I didn't regret. My theater was actually packed. I was probably the youngest person in said theater, but it was still a relatively packed theater, which was nice to see, even though this is set to be one of the biggest bombs this year. So on a $45 million budget, and I think it only made like 3 million or something this weekend, which is not great. But even then, I thought it was overall a good film. Not the greatest thing ever, but it's not Scorsese, Coppola, or Leone, but it's pretty good, fella. 6.5 out of 10. I'm not sorry for that terrible joke.
All right. Thank you, Geek Informant. All right. And next, the right dude. Who is now on the left?
All right. So, Alto Knights. Yeah. So, coming from someone who loves a lot of Martin Scorsese movies, who watches a lot of mobster movies, I was at least a little bit curious about this. I love I love Robert De Niro, and I will say that to this day, Robert De Niro hasn't, like, even though he's been in crap before, he's never given a bad performance in anything. So I'm sure that this guy could agree with me on that. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But so when it comes to this, I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. And I watched it yesterday as a double feature with my brother. We watched this and we watched Locked. And unfortunately, I'm probably going to have to be the negative Nancy from here for in this group, because I really wasn't into this movie so much. I mean, it's not like the worst kind of movie I've seen, but it's like, but it just didn't do a whole lot for me. As I said, Robert De Niro, he does a fantastic job, and I really didn't. It didn't bother me that he was trying to pull a Joe Pesci kind of a vibe. So because I mean he's a hell of an actor. So I think even the bad movies that Robert De Niro's in, because yes, he has been in bad movies before. He at least gives his A game in for each of his performance. I mean, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, terrible movie, but at least we can agree that Robert De Niro as the monster was the best part. And same goes for Little Fockers. Terrible movie, terrible, but he wasn't the problem with that movie, you know? So he honestly was able to, I will at least give credit where credit's due. He did a really good job with his performance. And you could also say the same thing for some of the other actors. And I do like the production design, where it was going for it. However, my biggest problem is just the fact that I feel like watching it, I just feel like I've seen these kinds of tropes in better mobster movies, especially like Martin Scorsese kind of movies. In fact, I even turned to my brother and be like, "How I'm really surprised that this was not directed by Martin Scorsese, because it feels like the director of this just seems like they were taking cues from Martin Scorsese's greatest hits, you know, like, and it was just trying to put it all into one generic, safe mobster movie, you know, because it just seems like it's just like watching it. I just kept thinking to myself, I could be watching Goodfellas by now. I could be watching Casino. I could be watching The Irishman, you know. It's just these are the same kind of tropes about like we see the highs of a gangster from the 40s and 50s and their ultimate downfall. It's just like we've seen these kinds of things before, and honestly, it just didn't seem like it did anything. And plus, as John brought it up, the editing and really weird. They were really. Looked very awkward. Like I honestly can't. As John said it before, like I was like, how many of the fade out transitions are we going to see? How many? Because it seems like when a scene ends, it fades out. Oh, it's like, all right, let's go. And then they open, and then they slowly fade back in. You know, that's really what it just seems like it's always doing that, and it just becomes. It's like honestly watching it, I just kind of expected like right in between when those transitions kept happening, I kept thinking like maybe I was going to see a commercial or something, like some kind of commercial. Like this is the part of the movie where the movie takes a break and you just see commercials until it comes back on. That's really what I just kept thinking of when I kept seeing things like that. But I mean, yeah. But like I said, my biggest problem is just the fact that we've seen these kinds of tropes way better in mobster movies, and I feel like this is just kind of the same old. It doesn't add anything new, and to me it just ends up becoming kind of forgettable. In fact, this kind of like what I said about Love Hurts. I feel like it's a movie that I'm even questioning if I'll remember it by the time we do our best and worst of 2025. So, but we'll see when we get to that. So overall, it's not the worst I've seen this year. I mean, I'll certainly take this over Wolfman and Brave New World. So, but at the end, just didn't do a whole lot for me. And from that, my score is a unfortunate 4 out of 10. So I'm sorry. I'm glad you guys liked it. It just didn't do much for me.
Yes, you should apologize.
That's fair. No, the thing is, I mean, Mark and I were saying this before you joined in, is we get why people might not like it. It's it's like compared, like the Mob movie is like like some of the best like movies of all time. Like we never remember the shitty ones, like outside of like maybe Gotti, but that was more of a courtroom drama than anything. And that was like famously bad, but like I don't really like any bad like really bad mob movies are not memorably bad. So I don't know. It's just
Exactly.
like it's not like, so it's not like, oh yeah, this is gonna be as bad as them, but it's like, but then when you have like heralded like amazing movies from some of the greatest directors who's ever lived, then it feels like, oh, this is, it's almost worse, because it's like it's not going to be remembered for being like the worst thing ever, and then but it's not at the same time going to be remembered as the greatest thing ever. It's just kind of going to be like, yes, under the rug, it's under the rug it goes, and that's kind of a shame, because I do think there is a lot of good in this movie, but it's just not going to be well remembered, which is kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like it'll go down as a footnote, you know. I mean, of course, noteworthy thing being De Niro playing two characters, you know, which I still think he did very well, both characters, you know. Caleb, yes, of course, Gotti cinema. But yeah, it pretty much is, like you said, a generic mobster film. You know, they did kind of take things, a lot of things from Scorsese. It took things from a lot of gangster films, really. The Fanatic one. Oh my God. Caleb out here trolling. You know, Meet the Parents is obviously the best De Niro film.
Oh yeah, Caleb is
that.
I mean, we know he's a troll. I mean, well, I know
Yeah.
he's a troll because he's from my job. That's where
Yeah.
subscribe to this channel. Thank you, Caleb, for subscribing.
Yeah, thank
But
you.
I mean, pull up one of his comments again.
Let's see.
Just pull up any comment. It doesn't matter.
I'm kind of wondering.
Look at his profile picture.
He's
Come
right about
on,
this.
look at that. You know he's a troll. He's got.
I was gonna say, now I'm kind of
Jared
wondering
Leto's
who.
damage.
Now I'm kind of wondering who was more of a troll, Caleb or Austin.
Depending on it kind of depends on your mileage, Caleb. If you didn't like The Irishman, you probably won't like this either. You know?
No, you
liking The Irishman doesn't
He doesn't
guarantee you
like
like
The
this,
Irishman.
but I mean, you know, like this one, it's a lot slower. It doesn't have a whole lot of violence. A lot of the violence is kind of implied rather than just shown. Like
I will
show like a dead body in a trunk or something, you know.
I will say the makeup on Vito is a hell of a lot better than the de-aging technology in the
hell
Irishman,
yeah,
though.
Jesus
Yeah,
Christ. Yeah.
that is like the one thing it's just,
And
if you just got fucking younger actors, The Irishman would have been like a 10 out of 10 movie. Because like watching like Robert De Niro try to break the guy's skull, the store shop owner is like, it looks like he's gonna fucking break a hip. And it's like, bro, this is just embarrassing at this point. Because like after they get old, it's not like bad. It's really good because then they make sense for their age, you know. But then when you're trying to tell me that Robert De Niro as a fucking 80-year-old with de-aging technology, he's supposed to be like 20 something, I'm like, nobody is fucking buying that at all. Yeah. And I love The Irishman. I think it was great.
This is a great point too, because I mean he's also he's done Unhinged a lot. Dear God, I mean,
although King Comedy was a very different kind of Unhinged,
kind of Unhinged, yeah. But I mean he's played many different types of roles. I mean this guy's a very versatile actor. You know, I mean, geez, he doesn't get a lot. I mean, it's weird. It feels weird to say De Niro doesn't get enough credit, but I mean, still, you know, he's not only in mob films. I mean, just it's like saying Scorsese only makes mob films, you know. I mean, for crying out loud.
I mean, remember. I was gonna say Martin Scorsese made Hugo, and that's more of a kids movie.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, he made a film about the fucking Dalai Lama, for fuck's sake. I mean, Jesus Christ, man. He made The Last Temptation of Christ. I mean, Jesus. I mean, he's made a lot of films, not just about. He's obviously. I think he's made a lot of films about New York. Because I mean, he is a New Yorker. He grew up in New York, you know. I mean, you know. So I mean, like Jesus, he and De Niro grew up like fairly close to it, like the same neighborhood or just about.
Yeah,
you know. I mean, but
I mean, Killers of the Flower Moon wasn't really a gangster movie either.
No. I mean,
and like that was quite different. He wasn't. Was he like a? I forget what his like role was, and I know he was like
the magnate. He was like this wealthy kind of sort of philanthropic type, you know, philanthropist type, you know, kind of paternalistic guy who behind the scenes was actually a real son of a bitch, the one who behind the killing, a lot of those killings,
Yeah.
So, I mean, but yeah, he was somehow even more disgusting in that than he was in his other roles. Yeah. Historical drama, exactly. Historical drama, exactly. Yeah, The Departed and Wolf of Wall Street are absolutely fucking fantastic. Yeah.
What would you guys say is like your favorite Robert De Niro performance ever? What do you say?
Wow. I got to say either Taxi Driver or Raging Bull.
I would say Taxi Driver or Goodfellas. Like I said, the man has never given a bad performance, even in his shitty. Like you can pretty much have Robert De Niro on the toilet for 2 hours, and he'll somehow still pull off a performance.
Somehow, yeah. I mean, there's Casino. I mean, I fucking love Casino. Jesus.
Oh, I love Casino.
Yeah, I love it. I mean,
like I said, Robert De Niro, Little Fuckers. I hated that movie so much,
but he's still good. I mean, the man. But the man can do comedy. I mean, Jesus. I mean, he's funny.
I like the first Meet the Parents.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He was.
I've got nipples, Greg. Can you milk me?
Okay. The way he said that too, his delivery was perfect.
Yeah.
Can you milk me? Oh my god. But yeah, De Niro is great. But I mean, yeah, it's pretty much, pretty generic mob film. And by the way, our buddy couldn't be here, Devin, Cinematic Sterling, and he gave the film 2 stars out of 5. So basically a 4 out of 10. And he did authorize that rating, by the way. He said that's fine. Didn't have a review, but he basically said the same thing as Rob, that he didn't really care for it. Pretty forgettable. So, which a lot of people felt that way, because I mean, the other people who were with the theater with us, Kaylee had mentioned that they were saying the same thing, that they didn't like it either. So, I mean, but, I liked it. Kaylee liked it. We didn't think it was great, but it was good. We liked it. So, I mean, it's one of those things. Your mileage may vary. You probably won't.
I feel like it's another kind of movie that my dad would really get into, because he loves mobster movies. He likes historical pieces.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, the one really, really violent scene was the killing of oh God, I forget it.
In the barbershop
with Albert Anastasia. The killing in the barbershop. Yeah, the barbershop. That's just true. Yeah. That actually happened. And that actually happened in real life. But yeah, pretty shocking. Yeah, that was really something. But I mean, other than that, there's really not a whole lot of blood in it. A lot of it's just implied, kind of, So it's really
and it expects you to. Yeah, it expects you to put the images in your head.
Yeah, like a lot of it, like it'll show like she at one point, he's talking about, he shows a body in a trunk rather than just showing him killing. He just shows a body in the trunk where he's giving narration, So it's like, so I mean, it's more implied than anything.
I gotcha.
But I like the like kind of fisherman's story of looking back on your life, and I really like that.
Yeah, I did too. And I think my favorite scene in the movie was the scene where they're in the restaurant talking to each other, because, I think Vigo makes an excellent point about Frank, because he's like, you want to play both sides. You like being Mr. Respectability. It reminds me a lot of Casino, of the relationship between Nikki and him in Ace in Casino, where you have Ace Rothstein, Robert De Niro's character, who he tries to be the smart one, to fly under the radar, but at the same time he likes being respectable and everything. So and then you have Nicky, who just he doesn't care. He's a gangster. He doesn't give a fuck. So I mean, he goes out, he does gangster shit. So I mean, so he's right. I mean, Vito's right. At the end of the day, he does try to walk both sides. He likes being respectable, but so he's like, me, I know who I know what I am. I'm a gangster. You're never going to be like that.
Okay. Just to let you know, I'm probably going to go ahead and hop off. I've got work
Okay,
tonight,
bud.
so all right,
All right,
but
man.
this was fun. So catch you
Have
next
a good.
time.
All right,
All
buddy.
right,
Take it easy, man.
you too, man.
All right, buddy.
Too, man.
All right. So it's just me and John.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't really know what else to say. I feel kind of bad that I don't have a ton to say
Yeah.
about this movie, but
Speaking of trolling.
yeah, that's peak Martin Scorsese, like right there.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh Jesus. Yeah. Rome's, what's up, Rome's? How you doing, buddy?
So,
Yeah, I know. I mean, I guess we could say, what do you think your top gangster movies?
I mean, it's like the obvious ones, like because it's the Godfather, Goodfellas are like the main ones.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Carlito's Way. I mean, Scarface being another one. I haven't seen Carlito's Way or Casino. I haven't seen oh, what was the one?
Was the Bronx
What was
Tale?
the one with what was oh, I'm forgetting the name of it.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm blanking on it. Hold on,
No,
I gotta look it up real quick.
I know you have your classics. You know, there's the older Scarface, you know, which I honestly like the newer Scarface better than the old one. Paul Money did a good job, I'll agree, but I mean, I actually think he's better in I was a fugitive from a chain gang. But
Donnie Brasco was the one.
Oh yeah, Donnie Brasco. That's a great one. That's a really great one. That's a really, really great one. Pacino and it was Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
You know, young
Johnny Depp before he got like super duper famous. But yeah, it was
exactly. He was still kind of low key there. But I mean, yeah, because I mean everybody knew him from 21 Jump Street, but at the same time he wasn't at the level he is now. But I mean, yeah,
right.
That one did a lot to make him. So, you know what? That's one I have not seen, Caleb. I have not seen Brazil, and that's one that's on my list that I need to see.
I didn't even know De Niro was in that.
I didn't know. I think I did know, but I mean, but it's not one like I typically associate with him. But I mean, it's one that's on my list. Every time I see it, I'm like, I got to see this film because it's supposed to be so good. I mean, I know it's a dystopian film, and I love dystopian stories. But yeah, that's one that's on my list. So Terry Gilliam's a good director too. So
I haven't seen a ton of his work. I've seen the Monty Python movies, but that's kind of it.
Monty Python, but I haven't seen
but yeah, I think it's just a shame. It's just like a shame how this one's kind of gonna be forgettable. But I think it's kind of funny that this one is called the Alto Knights, and then you had a TV show called The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Now we just need a gangster movie with tenor, baritone, and bass in the title. Yeah. Oh, I did watch Fear and Loathing. I fucking hated that movie. That sucked.
Yeah, I didn't care for Fear and Loathing either. I didn't care for Fear and Loathing. I'm one of the few who just don't care for 12 Monkeys either. I'm one of the few who just.
I think I remember you talking about that.
Yeah. I'm one of the few who just didn't care for it, but by the time loved it. But
but I haven't seen it. I haven't seen Brazil. I haven't seen a lot of it. I haven't seen Time Bandits.
Yeah.
Remember that time that Taika Waititi's tried to remake Time Bandits and it sucked? Peppered Farm remembers.
Yeah. yeah, exactly. But I mean, yeah, De Niro, he's hell of an actor. I mean, geez, it's hard to pick. I mean, I would say I still think his best role has to be either Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. I mean,
Raging Bull.
Yeah.
Godfather Part 2. That was really good.
2. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he just was magnetic in both of those films, though. In Raging Bull and Taxi Driver. I mean, he just owns the fucking screen. Yes, I think he is, isn't he?
That's probably never gonna happen because that's been in development hell for fucking years.
I fucking hope not. Jesus Christ.
Because Jordan Peele was supposed to do it, and then he dropped out, or he's just producing. I forget what it was, but it was like something like he just couldn't do it, or just didn't want to do it, and so yeah.
Yeah, I think I would love to see it's geez, you need a Japanese director to do that though. Jesus.
Well, it would be like an American version of Akira. That's why it's that. But it's is there anything else memorable about them? I mean, I will say the kills. That I think that the reason that I like the fact that it's not very violent, that the kills that are violent that come up are like it's more astonishing.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
There's a discussion for remakes that I do have that I'm not going to get into here, but it's definitely an interesting discussion. But I think I liked that. I like that Silver. I do kind of want to see it again because I feel like I missed some stuff that I maybe didn't see on the first watch. And I feel like my dad would probably like it, so I could maybe bring him along to see what he thinks. Yeah, especially stylized violence. I think that was well done. And I mean the production design was great. It felt like a 50s flick.
Yeah, it really did. I love the killing when they're up on the roof. One of my favorite moments is when they're up on the roof and they're behind the sheets and he just goes after them, starts killing the guy behind the seats. And then the most human thing possible happens. Some asshole just goes up there to take a fucking smoke break, and all of a sudden he sees this shit. And damn, he gets it too. It's like, holy shit.
I like how they did that because you can clearly tell that they're trying to avoid like the geriatricness of it all. Exactly. Like they hid behind it because like again that was the famous scene in the infamous scene in the Irishman where De Niro beats the guy up and it looks like an 80-year-old trying to be a fucking 40-year-old and it just doesn't work and it just it just doesn't work. So and with that, I think that was a good way to avoid it. It felt like a good like kind of it didn't feel like weird or out of place. It just felt like why don't we just talk for a bit and then it happens but it was a good stylized way of doing it and then the asshole comes up and that works too. So, I think that was a very well done scene. That was another one. Yeah.
But yeah, it was I agree. It was some really funny things. You idiot, what are you doing? It's a fucking gun. It's a fucking gun. It's not gonna be quiet. It's not supposed to be quiet. It's a fucking gun. Oh my god. I have expected to kill him just right there. Like Jesus Christ, man. Oh my god.
I don't know why he kept him around.
I think that was the other guy who was in the car. I think that was like his nephew, wasn't it? God, like
was it
his right hand man?
I don't know. It was like supposed to be his right hand man, I think.
Yeah.
But I like the fucking Palmyra thing. I was fucking laughing my ass off.
Oh god, yeah, me too. You think anybody would find a fucking gold Bible and then fucking leave? What the fuck is wrong?
And he was so confident about it too.
Everybody knows that.
And it was so confident, like, hey, it was like, oh, my mom told me your fucking mom's a fucking whore. All right, fuck you.
Oh my god, yeah, it's really fucking hilarious. But I mean, I guess we kind of run out of things to say here. I mean,
yeah, it's unfortunate. I wanted to talk about this movie more, but I just feel like I can't really.
Yeah,
I would say it's a good movie. I would say check it out. Like, if there's nothing else, don't fucking support Snow White. Support this instead. It's a good movie. It's not that as bad as everyone says it is. It's it's not going to be the next Goodfellas, but it's not going to be like fucking like Smoking Aces or something like that.
Oh no. I mean, it also had one of my favorite gangster movies in there.
White Heat.
White Heat. Yeah,
I have not seen White Heat, but it's on the list.
Great film. Love that. Top of the world, ma. You gotta fucking love James Cagney. He's a real fucking character, man. Jesus. But that and Public Enemy #1, those two are just absolutely necessary for. Or the cinematic masterpiece Gotti. Yes, thank you, Caleb. The cinematic masterpiece Gotti. Oh my God! All right. Well, I guess that's all we have to say, fellas, folks. So, thank you very much. What's our next review, John?
Our next review, hang on, is in fact, it is, oh God, it's Death of a Unicorn, and that's going to be next week, and that's going to be hosted by Rome.
Nice. Death of a Unicorn. Really, really looking forward to that one. It just looks way out there, and I love it.
I like the concept, but it just looks like a Marvel movie, but a horror movie. That's just like the vibe I'm getting. But
We'll
I
see.
hope it's good. But
It's either going to be really good or really bad.
yeah, it's going to be either the worst thing ever. Or it's going to be like, yeah, it's all right. It's going to have a good score.
Yeah,
that's the most. And we know that, but that's kind of it. But yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see you next week, folks. Take it easy. Goodbye.
Peace out.
Once again, we have brought light into the world. You're welcome, America.